I think that not enough people teach tactics when they're teaching any martial art. Do I choose to execute Kime on your skin or on your beard, as the case may be? Or do you choose to go 1 centimeter deeper, which is going to create catastrophic damage?
Would like to ask you a question called Maai, so distancing. How does that concept inform your tactical decision in sparring or even in self-defense?
Well, especially self-defense. Let's talk about it in terms of Kumite rather than sparring. Because sparring, generally speaking, is relaxed and of no real threat. The problem is if the only Kumite that you do is sparring, then you're never going to progress to be a warrior. You've got to do Kumite. It's got to be hard. It's got to be threatening. It doesn't have to be destructive, but it has to be threatening. It has to make your adrenaline come up, and it's got to push you sometimes beyond where you want to go. But if we just keep our conversation for the moment to not Kumite, but Maai, every technique has a distance. Every technique has a different distance. And so Maai relates to not just a physical distance, but the emotional understanding and the intellectual understanding of the space between you and a target. Now, whether that target is a human being, or whether that target is a grizzly bear, or whether that target is a makiwara, doesn't matter what that target is, you've got to feel that distance. And we go through all sorts of drills to help people feel that distance. But Sensei Kimura used to say, some people will never feel the distance because they never feel threatened by the techniques that are coming the other way, and they never feel threatened by the techniques that they're going to throw themselves. So he believed firmly that Kumite had to drive you to an excellence that perhaps you were not used to. But it's only at that point that you can really understand Maai. How long is your arm? I'm not talking about how many inches is it. How far away does how far is it safe for an opponent to stand before you can hit him or her? How about kicking him or her? How long is one slide? How long is a Tsuriyashi? How long is a Tsuriyashi backwards? How long, if you're doing our directional movements, how far are you going to be? How do you shorten the distance? How do you lengthen the distance? Maai is not about distance. It's about the intellectual and spiritual feeling of that distance. When you've trained for many years and you take a Kime position facing somebody, even if it's somebody that you've trained with many, many times, there should always be okay, I'm now in a situation of combat. There should always be a sharpening of the mind. Because if you find the wrong distance, they're going to punch you. If you find the wrong distance, you're not going to be able to kick them. You've got to be comfortable with where that distance is for your technique. Now, so you asked a more complex question, which is, how does that affect tactical decisions? I think that not enough people teach tactics when they're teaching any martial art, in all honesty. Let's talk about a very simple tactic. Very simple. You've got a very small woman or man, and you've got a very large opponent. and the very large opponent wants to attack from his distance or her distance. The small person who's being attacked, the natural instinct is to move away. If they're able to move away to the point where the other person can't reach them or get at them, like for instance, let's say they step outside of a restaurant door, there's somebody out there wanting to rob. So what they do is they very quickly retreat back into the restaurant, place of safety. They can phone the police, they can get other people involved, so on. That's appropriate. But if all they're going to do is to increase the distance to a degree, their feeling has got to be to increase the distance beyond where the other person can hit them, grab them, strike them. Or move really close, where everything that they do is going to work and the other person is now having to fight down, where the lower part of the body is vulnerable to strikes, to elbows, to palm heel strikes, to headbutts, to all sorts of things. But at the same time, they're fighting down. So it's a tactical choice. And the tactical choices that we make every time we do Kumite are largely based around the distance that we find ourselves. So you can't separate Maai from the tactics of combat itself, because the Maai depends on, so for instance, let us say, like at the moment I have an injury, okay? I'm just about to have a hip replacement. So I think you'd agree that my movement in a combat situation would be limited. Are we agreed?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But I'm using a walking stick at the moment, aren't I?
Yes.
That increases my distance, doesn't it? So tactically, I would adopt a position where I didn't have to move, but I could use the tactical advantage of having the walking stick. And trust me, I've had 3 months to practice. Trust me, I am really, really good. I have actually been using the walking stick on the bag. I've been using the walking stick on the ball, the floor-to-ceiling ball. I've been working on it because it's of interest to me. Okay, so I will use the tactical advantage of the walking stick based on the Maai. Does that make sense?
It does. And the Maai obviously gives you, or the correct Maai obviously gives you the choice. Let's assume during training, if you were to hit the target or even the other person for that training matter with skin touch or more, or causing damage, or...
Yeah, look, you're right, except just one thing. Maai is very specific to the length of your techniques and your distance from the opponent. When we start talking about choices as to whether you hit or don't hit, that's a choice not based so much on distance, but on penetration. Actually, on Kime, what we talked about just a few moments ago. Do I choose to execute Kime on your skin or on your beard, as the case may be? Or do you choose to go 1 centimeter deeper, which is going to create catastrophic damage? Okay. But as I say to the Yudanshikai constantly, it has to be a choice. If you hit someone by accident, that should never happen, certainly not at black belt level, okay? Even if they move inadvertently, you should still be able to control your technique because you've practiced thousands of times touching or not touching, touching or penetrating. Now, we don't penetrate to somebody's head, but we do practice penetration on the pads, on the focus mitts, and so on. Impact, touch, not touch, damage has to be a choice. And the only way you can do that is hundreds and hundreds of kicks, hundreds and hundreds of punches, culminating in thousands of techniques over the years where you learn perfect control. In karate, we never, ever, I hate it when people talk about pulling punches. We don't pull punches, ever. We execute technique with perfect Kime. That's what we do, so that it becomes a choice.